네, 여러분 안녕하십니까?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, the 17th Jeju Forum, day 3rd, and I believe that we have the nicest weather today. Hope you had a good lunch. And let's move on to have the green tech session. Actually, the topic is achieving net zero using green technology, the future of a sustainable renewable energy industry. Before we begin, let me give you a housekeeping announcement. Please put on your masks and make sure that your mobile phone is in vibration or silent mode. Number 1 is Korean. Number 2 is English simultaneous interpretation. Let's introduce our chairperson, Professor Lee, Kim-young Lee from Jeju National University. 1991 is when he joined Jeju University, and he has led the Smart Grid Complex or Center. He has awarded ministerial award for his achievement. And also we have a carbon-free island, Jeju, to be achieved, and he's working as a special member for different committees under the carbon-free island project. Let's hand over the microphone to Chairperson, Professor Lee. Thank you. As introduced, I am from Jeju National University. My name is Kim-young Lee. As said, we will be talking about achieving net zero using green technology. So renewable energy industry is the subject that we are going to cover today. The AI Ethics Association has supported this session. Thank you for that. Working with the private and public sectors together, we will achieve, or we can achieve, net zero using green technology. We will have a 2 keynote speech, followed by 4 panelists. Once the panel discussion is done, we will open the floor for Q&A. I'm going to give you 15 minutes per speaker and 7 minutes for each panelist. First, let me introduce all the speakers and panels. First speaker will be Ian De Cruz. He is a General Secretary of P4G and GGGI, in which Korea is deeply involved, and they are the main organization for green growth. Among others, P4G is for the green growth and global cooperation involving the public and private sectors. And sustainable goal achievement is the objectives that it tries to achieve. And he will be talking about P4G cooperation.
예, 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Please give him a big hand.
전화가
The second speaker is a representative speaker for the environmental policy, Professor Hong Jong-ho from Seoul National University. He teaches environmental energy policies at the same school. Energy Society is what he leads, and also he works for the Presidential Committee for the Environmental Matters. And he will be covering the global landscape when it comes to the environmental issues. And he will be the second speaker, as I said. Once the speakers are over, please give him a warm round of applause. Let's move on to introduce discussant. First discussant is the co-representative of Local Energy Transition Network, Eugene Lee. For carbon neutrality, we have to secure support from the local communities, and the organization that she's leading will play a very important role. Under the presidential office, 2050 Carbon Neutrality Committee, and then Green New Deal Special Envoy, the positions that she has served. Let's introduce a second panelist, who is from the Green Technology Center. He's a director of the National Climate Technology Cooperation Center. Climate change policies and New Deal and the role of science and the society and academies cooperations for the big issue of the climate change is what he is interested in, and he will be talking about the international cooperation. Please give him a warm round of applause. Our third speaker is Chang Bae-jan. He is a chair of the International Association for AI and Ethics. Internet, telecommunication, and broadcasting industry are where he has served, so I can say that he's an IT expert. Today, he is leading the International Association for AI and Ethics. Actually, he is the founder of that organization. Carbon neutrality and green tech, smart grid, renewable energy, and electric vehicle are the main leaders of the green technology. As for the smart grid, a number of IT technologies have been introduced along with AI. Systems, regulations, and the demand are the areas where the green technology and AI can be introduced. As you know, carbon neutrality encompasses a number of ethical issues. So he will be talking about the ethical issues involving green tech and AI. Please give him a warm round of applause, too. The last discussant or panelist is from the Jeju self-governing province. He's the Low Carbon Policy Division Director. As you know, Jeju is very special. Starting from 2012, carbon-free 2030 plan was established. Smart grid-based electric vehicle has been distributed since then. Jeju is a tourist attraction. That's why the transportation consumes 50% of the energy. That's why we try to introduce electric vehicles as soon as possible. And electric vehicle and smart grid are the areas where the green technology was adopted first and foremost in Korea. So he will be talking about carbon-free 2030 project and what we have achieved. And he will be sharing his experience with us today. Please give him a big hand to our last panelist. And without further ado, we are going to move on to have a presentation. First presentation will be made by Ian De Cruz, Secretary General, and he will be talking about the achieving delivery platform, the climate and SDG impact.
Thank you very much for hosting this, to the Korean government, to the organizers of Jeju. And in this session, as we look about going to net zero, what we want to offer to P4G from P4Gs is a couple of big ideas of how Korea, its technology, and example in places like Jeju may be able to help others as they look to transition to net zero. But as a part of that, I'll talk a little bit about what P4G is, Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals, which is a delivery platform for climate change and sustainable development goals. So as we look at the world, this is what we are trying to do is find and accelerate those green inclusive models. And I'll use an analogy that in 1992, if you looked and someone said, you look into the future and a smartphone would change telecommunications. You will not need landlines. You will not need, you can work using a phone. You can transfer money using the phone. You can have entertainment and listen to BTS over the phone. And you, in a pandemic, can continue. And you said that that will be the case in 2022. Everyone would look at you and say you're crazy. But what we are all doing today, and what P4G is doing, is working with people like you to say, what is the smartphone technology in 2052? And you have experts here, so they will tell you what they think. But we have some early examples that signal to us in energy what that transition is. But that's what we're here today. So that's one big idea I want to share. What are we working collectively on that smartphone technology? And what's so great about the smartphone, and this is an analogy to energy, it doesn't require central transmission and infrastructure. It's very distributed. It's highly networked. It can be very participatory. So I've just been to Bangladesh and Vietnam for P4G, lots of smartphones there. So an idea that may be worth discussing in this group is, what do our cities look like in 2052 now? In Jeju as an example, but if we had a world where cities were designed without private car use, what's the infrastructure we would have? If you could integrate distributed energy and transport systems together as a network, what would that look like? So I will leave it to experts here to share their views on this, but there is that way of incredible resource efficiency, much greater access and mobility at much lower cost. And the second big idea is, so much of investment, technology and trade happens north of the equator. But the countries which P4G works in and helps support are below the equator. So we see these countries not as victims of climate change, but agents of change where the latest and best technology and investment can occur. Then we have a duty, but also a market opportunity and investment opportunity to do it. But the key is it has to be on the terms of our countries in Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Vietnam. We can't just impose that technology, but we must share that technology. So as you look, we really thank Republic of Korea for not only hosting a very big summit, which was very important for Korea, but also for P4G to mainstream our concept and approach to help fund us with Denmark and Netherlands. But these countries are not just funders, but leaders in green technology. Next year, our summit will be hosted in Colombia. Colombia wants to make and look at Colombia, Chile, and Mexico as a Latin American regional bloc. There are 3 countries out of the 4 in the Pacific Alliance. In Bogota, in Colombia, they want to procure the most electric buses in the world outside of cities in China. So that's a great opportunity for Korea to be a good strategic technology partner to help with batteries, with help with the electric mobility and charging infrastructure, but quite frankly, the industrial capacity to create those green new markets there. So this is the proposition of how do we bring Jeju, how do we bring technology in Korea to our countries in Colombia, Mexico, Chile, Ethiopia, Kenya, and South Africa, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Vietnam. We thank World Resources Institute as our host, but also here, Global Green Growth Institute, International Finance Corporation, World Economic Forum, and C40 cities. So what do these partnerships look like? So we've tried this for over 5 years, 76 partnerships, and there's 3 things we look at. So when you're all technology people in this room, right? But the first thing to say is, how will this impact on people? How will this provide access to services for people, at what costs, and in what way? The second thing is, there has to be a climate change impact. And we really think a significant mitigation play, because if we want this leapfrogging to occur in our emerging economies, the ability to do it, to change their pathway, but provide a signal for others is really important. And it has to leverage investment. If we provide technology and investment, technology, but without a sense of how can this be sustained, how can this be a business model, it has to be an investment model. It cannot just be technology deployment without those factors all brought in. So what's the problem P4G is looking to solve, and we're looking for you to help, is there's a big gap between the amount for global goals, when you say climate change and sustainable development goals, they're at 3.5 to 4.2 trillion that is needed to be implemented annually. But development aid is only about 160 billion. So the only way we can make that leapfrogging is to design from the start that development capital is seed capital to bring pre-commercial and commercial solutions in investment with technology brought in as a package. And that early stage investment, the smartphone type thinking, a smartphone and how much it costs is very different to the cost of a central transmission infrastructure. We must make whatever we do in technology, AI, cities design accessible, participatory, and fairly easy for people to start doing that immediately. So what are those systems, principles? We'll hear from experts here about how that works. So what are some examples we have in P4G? What makes us unique is we start from the developing countries first. We see them as agents of change for climate investment opportunities. We want to bring some of that state-of-the-art technology that you have here in Korea, but based on solutions that become business models, not just technology solutions in themselves, so it can be financially sustainable, build a local enterprise, create jobs and investment in our countries like Vietnam, like Bangladesh, like Indonesia first, but in doing so, bring significant gain to countries like Korea and its ambitions to be this global pivotal state, to bring its technology as a strategic partnership to the P4G family. But it requires that consideration of green and inclusive business models from the start, not further down the chain when the technology is understood and deployed, but right from the start. And you want to bring private sector players, particularly local small, medium enterprises and micro, small, medium enterprises into that system as soon as possible. So a few examples. On the right, you have one which I visited in Bangladesh. How do you electrify 2 3-wheelers? But you do that with solar rooftops, and you charge that in the evening around midnight when the grid has capacity and it's at lowest, but it's also cheapest. So that's utilization of a grid that speaks into the central grid. And so that's a business and investment opportunity for 2 3-wheelers. Those 2 3-wheelers can also, with sharing technology, help increase network capacity for this in Bangladesh. The second one is net zero affordable homes in Mexico, where building and efficiency is built in as a financial product up front and then utilized to really reduce the costs so that you can actually scale in affordable homes a whole net zero energy efficiency package. And the third one, Energize Africa, looks to matchmake with crowdfunding investors in UK and Netherlands with small, medium enterprises developing things like off-grids, households and solar rooftops in places in Africa like Kenya and South Africa. And those are things that Korea could think about in how it crowdfunds and provides direct business-to-business investment or consumer-to-consumer investment with entrepreneurs. So, as you think about today's session and you think about what Korea can offer and what Jeju offers, think about what is that green business model that can come from your technology? How can that scale in emerging economies and bring this to our emerging economies in P4G, but really according to what they are looking to grow and partner together, and we can be that medium. And the invitation is there's an opportunity to take some of this thinking and approach and knowledge to Colombia next year when it hosts its P4G Summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. P4G. He talked about P4G. It's an international green tech project, what you have implemented for carbon neutrality, especially the carbon emission reduction, requires international cooperation because no single country can do it alone. As for the carbon emission, we need to cooperate, including ROK. Korea will I hope that Korea will provide more support to your organization. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And Dr. Hong, it's your turn. Thank you. Thank you. Do you hear me? Yes. Thank you for inviting me to this important event. Today, I'm going to talk about this topic and summarize it first. In response to the climate crisis, we need to have a new industrial policies. In Korea, we are not a front runners in that issue. Within a country, we need to have a consistent policies, but looking forward policies too, for the companies to make investment and create jobs and acquire industrial competitiveness. One of the biggest hurdles or challenges are the renewable energy, in a sense. In other words, we need to secure renewable energies on plan. And the things that Samsung Electronics described last night would happen in the future if you are not braced for that. And the Korean government should understand the challenges that are lying ahead and try to make efforts to create ecosystem for us all, including companies or businesses. So let me tell you the background of the messages delivered last night and what are the landscape and what kind of impact we are exposed to. As I said, renewable energy, what the future is like and what potentials does it have. That's the main topic that I'm going to cover today. Let me describe the statement that I believe very important. Climate changes are no longer environmental issues. It's rather economic matters. And carbon-free trade norms are emerging. Recently, Russia invaded Ukraine and the war broke out, which disrupted the energy supply chain, as you are aware. And some people say that we have to rely on the fossil fuel. But the big trend is that we need to transition to the renewable energy. That is a constant, not a variable. Germany is a good example. Renewable energy will increase. That's what Germany set as a target or goal, and we should be in line with that. In order to meet the demand, we have to have more renewable energies, and in order to achieve that, we should have a good infrastructure first and foremost. In 2020, we saw carbon-free trade norms emerge and settle, and they can be broken down into three: RE100, ESG, and CBAM. I believe all of you are familiar to these terms, but from the corporate perspective, you may think that this is a regulations imposed by the government. No way. This is created based on the voluntary participation of global companies. More than 380 companies are joining. And it says that recyclable renewable energy will be used and the proportion will increase by 2050, 100%. That's what the plan talked about. And as for those companies who join this, they declare that Renewable Energy 100 will be achieved as soon as possible. And as for the RE 100, included Scope 1 and 2 only, but not a small number of companies decided to cover Scope 3 too. So even small companies will be urged to use renewable energy in the future. And that's the reason why many companies feel threatened, because Korea has an export-driven economy, Even though the proportion has declined, we are still dependent on exports to a large extent. If we do not achieve the RE 100 as planned, I believe that we will find it difficult to export our product in the future. As Samsung Electronics led the movement to join this kind of program, and other Korean companies follow suit. This is the criteria on which the competitiveness of businesses will be determined, and investment decisions will be made in line with that. That's the big trend that we are in. So we need to keep track of the updates, and whenever we draw the management plans, we have to take that into account. We have a government or national level regulations too. One of them is the CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. When you import, we have to take the carbon expenses into account. Rather, you have to consider whether the tanso or carbon expenses has been paid. In our WTO system, it may lead to a trade conflict, but I believe that this is a system that we cannot evade anymore because we have a very serious climate crisis approaching. And by the year 2027, it will be in a full implementation, and it will disrupt the manufacturing industry to a large extent. Not only the Europe, but also the USA, they are making a huge effort, and the bill has been presented to the Congress, which is similar to this one. If we do not pay enough attention to what's going on in EU and America, we will not be able to grow anymore. We will fail to respond to the climate changes, which means that our competitive edge may decline. This is the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed not long ago. When we have a look at the details, or the investment will be used to tackle the climate change issues. It's R&Ds. But in other words, it is focused on creating jobs in the USA. And as for the policies of the USA, in response to the climate changes, they will create or support the domestic industries. And I believe it's going to have a ripple impact. And Hyundai Automobile believes that it's going to disbenefit them, but this act will go beyond it. We should see it in a big picture. It can pose a serious threat, but at the same time opportunities too. What about this one? Energy supply and demand crises are growing. And this is a cartoon released in Europe. We are talking about hydrogen economy and electric vehicles. No matter what we say, this winter in Europe, in households, are we able to provide enough energy for heating? That's what they are thinking about. We are not free from this kind of problem. There is a serious shortage of energy sources. So it will be a big challenges that we will be facing. However, we should not forget our long-term goal and picture, which is a growing renewable energy in the future. Let me have a look. It's Repower Europe. Against the backdrop of war, they are making efforts to grow the competitiveness of a renewable industry in the region or in the country. And the last point is related to AI and digital technology, and it says the transition. Green and digital is what they are aimed for at the same time. So let me show you a schema in the future. Green will be the big background. To stimulate that, digital will be used. Combination and converging the two technology will lead to a synergy effect. In terms of digital, Korea is not lagging behind, but when it comes to green, we face a huge challenge. We have to make sure that both of them will go hand in hand because they will determine the national competitiveness. In the past, when you say that carbon competitiveness, somebody might be confused. What does it mean? Compared to the value in sales, how little carbon you generated. That's what it means. The lower volume that you generate during the production process, the more competitive you will be. This is a graph of some countries, and purple represents Korea. Over the past 40 years, during the IMF crisis, GDP declined, but that was only point when the carbon generation declined. But from 1980 to 2018, the carbon generation continued to increase. So did China, and the red dot represents Germany. Germany's curve is quite different. And the USA is number one in terms of the GDP generation per capita. They consume too much energy. However, the general trend is that it started to decline, at least over the past couple of years. So compared to the other countries, I believe that Korea need to step up their effort. This is a graph that worries me most. OECD, out of OECD, how much renewable energy they have out of all the energy sources. Most of them are 30%. At the bottom, we have Korea, only 8.6%. And Korean statistics say that renewable energy account for only 7.6%, which is too small. Samsung Electronics say that please increase the proportion of renewable energy. That's what they have asked for. If we do not do that, we will lose all the investment. This is not an individual or single proposal or recommendation. No, this is what the McKinsey and Company said, or Perspective 2022. As you see here, up to 80 to 90% will be from the renewable energy by 2050. This is what the future looks like. We are lagging behind too much. We should make more effort. It doesn't suit the position that we take in the global market. Let's have a look at the renewable energy. As you see here, out of new power generation facilities, 82% is for the renewable. That's a big trend. We should not go against it. If we go against it, we will lose all the competitiveness of the industry of Korea. I love this photo. It impresses me. This is wind turbine, offshore turbines, and drone is used to monitor it. So it's very special drone that can monitor the operation of the wind turbines, and it's being developed. And this shows you a green and digital technology convergence. Germany and Denmark are the pioneers, and that's what we need to make sure to take place in Korea too. For it to take place, the government should provide all the support. We have to learn from what Germany is doing. CCFD is what they have implemented. In order to reduce uncertainty of introducing hydrogen economy, the government has introduced a certain system so that companies will make investment in hydrogen without worrying about the future. This is what we need to do. The government needs to provide the support so that private organizations or companies will go ahead in the right direction. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is all I have. Thank you so much for your presentation. Dr. Hong talked about what we need to do to achieve carbon neutrality. RE100 is something that we should be aimed to achieve, but we need to do more than that. CFI 2030 plan was established by Jeju Island. During the process of implementing it, new renewable energy, wind energy, and electric vehicles has been distributed. Along the process, we have faced a lot of challenges, technology-wise and regulation-wise. I believe that we will face the same difficult challenges on the way to achieve RE100. But no matter what, we need to cooperate to achieve the goal that we have set. Thank you for your great, wonderful presentation. Then let's move on to invite the panelist, Eugene Lee. What the local communities need to do, that's the topic that he's going to cover.
너무 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you for the two presentations. I want to ask you a question. By 2030, carbon-free island, CFI 2030. Could you imagine a carbon-free island, Jeju Island, by 2030? How would be the life of Jeju residents? Renewable takes up 14.4% in the energy mix, and carbon-free island means the number would increase to about 100%, replacing almost all fossil fuel. With that, renewable production, many jobs would be created, and today a lot of jobs are created in the tourism sector, and in the future we will see more jobs in the energy sector. With that energy capacity, solar, wind, and the supporting green hydrogen ESS, those facilities would be established. We have the curtail problem. With more renewable, with its volatility, we might need some demand resource market, and plus DR is now being implemented in part of the island, and sector coupling technologies to turn surplus energy electricity into other energy sources, and electricity from EVs can also be sent to the grid. I'm talking about technology, but in order to achieve carbon-free islands, we can think about the technology that are being implemented, tested, and connected today. My question is that, is technology enough? We need to make sure people use the technology. We need to help people to fully utilize the technology, and then what should we do? And Secretary Cruz, you said smartphone is important. Smartphone enables communications, transportation, and many other things. By becoming carbon-free islands, production can be the part where residents can join, but in the future, demand can also be the one that they can join. They can adjust demand. But the problem is that many people today don't really consider demands that requires incentives for residents, and that means we need to have price policies. I visited the Jeju Island website, and I saw a very special study which is called Introduction of Jeju Type Value Compensation System to establish Jeju Type Distributed Energy Special Zone Plan to facilitate production and consumption of energy. The study is looking at the way forward to make sure people understand climate change issue is not just about their daily life, but also about their economy as well. Technology can be connected and institutions can also be established for that future. That is a really important part, I believe. Last year, Jeju Island announced Green New Deal policy, and the policy goes that it will create 50 self-sufficient villages where citizens and residents can participate in a lot of energy-related activities to have a bigger complex, so from small towns to complexes and again to the entire province. I believe this gradual process is really important. Of course, developing technology is important, but we also need to think about how to connect the technology to the people. And I believe adopting a living lab can also be a very feasible way. When we developed a good technology, but there are only few people who use that technology, then we need to figure out why, and that process is very important. Carbon-free island, it's been 10 years in Jeju Island. It is a 10 years old policy, and I believe this is very beneficial for Korea and for the entire Asia as well. Despite that, in the process, residents' participation and engagement is very important. So we need to set up that process and program to help them participate in the process. If you look at the process of policy design last year, the corporation, Electricity Corporation of Jeju Island, created a resident committee to help them engage in the process, to have dialogues with themselves. So we have the Seoul Energy Corporation and Seogwipo City and Jeju City, two cities in this island. We can build 2 centers in each city, and we have 52 self-sufficient villages, and that way we have a lot of centers across the island and across Korea as well. That way we can connect people, residents, and the technology as well. This kind of activities can also be spreading across the nation and across the world as well. Thank you.
이준 대표님 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. As for Jeju, we have gone through trial and errors technology-wise, and we also found a number of new issues, and we are in the process of resolving them. We have identified that issue and trying to solve it too. Thank you for identifying it. And there were many conflicts among us, depending on the roles that we play. So, as for the multilateral cooperation. From your expert point of view, I'd like to get your feedback to that too. Thank you. Let's move on to the next discussant. He's a director of Green Technology Center, Taegon Kim. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful, beautiful forum. I believe the title includes very important terms such as green tech, net zero, sustainable, new renewable energy. And among them, green tech is what we use all the time at our center, which is a Green Technology Center. And what we are in charge of is international cooperation. I mean, the topic that I'm going to cover is international cooperation. When we have a look at the keywords, what are the areas where we can cooperate with other countries? Are there any cases for that? And are there any cases involving our organization? What lessons that we have learned? And let me also share my thought as well. First, net zero, green tech, the international cooperation reflecting those words are many, but they are not that much different from that of other international cooperation mechanism or organizations. As for the key technologies, we do a joint research too. For the developing countries, we kind of transfer our technologies to them. That's the cooperation that we have. We also identify the demand for the international cooperation, and at the end, we put the technology into the market or utilize them in the market. And second, what about the international cooperation cases? With the developed countries for the renewable energies, and whenever we talk about this issue, ITER project, it's a kind of a fruit of the Cold War. It's a project to create an artificial sun. A huge amount of money has been invested from 1980s. I believe that more than 10 billion euro has been invested in that project. So artificial sun is what they are trying to create. As you hear that, it will not be achieved by a single country. By creating the artificial sun, we will secure a huge energy sources. And for the renewable energy, when we have a look at the details, wind, solar panels are the main parts. Their markets continue to grow, and technology will and is continue to evolve. Utilizing the waste resources is where the technologies are developing too. So Korea-wise, out of renewable energies, hydrogen is what we are focusing on. Among others, fuel cell is where we are very strong. So based on our strengths, the cooperation has been pursued. So cooperation with the advanced countries, we are conducting joint researches with the urea and other items. What about the project with the developing countries? Usually, ODA is what we do, which requires a huge resources, an international initiative, and multilateral development band operate certain projects which are similar but different from ODA. And at the government level, we have cooperation of technology projects among different ministers. What we cover are very diverse. And let me tell you what we cover most: water, agriculture, energy, energy efficiency, transportation, building are the main areas that we are focusing on. And then as for the areas that I have covered, as Ian said, P4G is working on the global goal 2030. Some of the areas are overlapped, or sections are overlapped. No hunger is what we are aimed for when it comes to agriculture and food. Number 6, water. Number 7 is energy. And number 10, 11, circular energy, circular economy and urban development. So what we are doing is greatly demanded not only at home but abroad. So international cooperation is done in those areas. As for our organization, what kind of cooperation project that we have implemented? They are as follows. We have UN Climate Change Convention and TA, Technical Assistance, is the project that we are involved in. We make a national contribution, and that is used to help the developing countries involving Korean firms. As for TE, the scale is not that big, so we try to combine it with the other bigger project too. That's the cases of international cooperation that I can share. And through the cooperation, what we have learned, what are the implications? As Dr. Lee said, by 2030, carbon-free island will be achieved. When we imagine that, what should we complement? And what she has covered is similar to what we need to do. And Secretary General showed you one of the slides that we are focusing on as well. When we aid developing countries, we need to have a look at the competence that we have as a donor or helper. We need to identify the demand of the developing countries. That's the first step. This is a demand-driven approach in the UN term. So we should be able to look at the perspective from the developing countries, the receiver, and the intrinsic competency refers to the competency that the local people have. Once we give our assistance to them, they should be able to stand on their own. And finance-wise, sustainability is necessary. It's in line with the economic cycle or principles. In Jeju, carbon-free island is where we need to have those foundation. And once we implement that, we will have enough competency to provide help required by the developing countries. While helping our developing countries, I believe that we are improving our competency at the same time. So what I want to say is that we need to identify the demand of the developing countries and help them to stand on their feet, stand on their foot one day. And while teaching them, we can learn to and grow our competencies. And if we succeed one project, that's not enough. In order to achieve the net zero goal to be achieved, so I always say that we are doing marathon, not a short running. So the entire cycle should be covered. We have a small project that can launch and then connect it to or lead to the next project to achieve a net zero. So transition should be done smoothly. And as we do whisper what we want, the other person sitting next to me to do, we have to deliver the clear statement or clear messages to that. And last but not the least, we should play our role and make sure that everyone goes in the right direction that we planned in the first place. And last but not least, I'm going to share my personal opinion. Technology that we are talking about is a little bit different from the technology that we understand because it has a social nuances embedded. This kind of renewable energies implies that we want to achieve the goal that we want to achieve using green technology. So social value is embedded in the technology that we are talking about. So this is a philosophy that we need to understand and embed when we do the joint project with other countries. This is all I have to say today. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Green tech and international cooperation project have been presented or covered quite thoroughly. Let's move on to the next discussant, Chang Bae-jeon. He will be talking about the ethical issues. Thank you.
네,
Good afternoon. I am chairman of International Association for AI and Ethics, Chun Chang-bae. I'm really glad to meet you all in this room, and I'm honored to be here as a speaker and also as a host as well, organizer as well. I want to talk about a fundamental issue. The theme is AI, green tech, and ethics for carbon neutrality. Today, the era is called post-human era or post-humanism era. What does it mean? Post-humans can be seen as a new human race that outperforms the existing humans. As the boundary between humans, robots, and technology has disappeared, this is a new kind of human beings. In this post-human era, we are facing a lot of changes. This is a whole new era. What is the most outstanding characteristic of the era? AI, NFT, metaverse, robots, those new technologies that didn't exist before are emerging. These innovative technologies are changing humanity as a whole and our lives as well. And we also have new generation, which is called Z generation. We can call them a new humanity. For them, the most important value is themselves and fairness as well. Their values are different from the previous generations. They have new way of thinking. They have new way of behaviors. With this new technology and new human race, we are facing the era of post-human. Over the last 6 million years, humanity has been here on this earth, and I believe the recent century is the richest one with a lot of technologies being rapidly developed, and our quality of life has also increased a lot. But is it really true? Actually, we are facing climate crisis. The ecosystem is being disrupted. Population is exploding. There are many conflicts across the world and between generations and classes or different races. We have a lot of conflicts as well. And carbon emission is not under control around the world. We would face climate disaster, not just climate crisis. That is why we need to regret and we need to look back on ourselves. We need criticism. We have a solution that we can have from the technological perspective. We can achieve carbon neutrality. We can develop renewables to overcome climate crisis. This is technical solution. AI, big data, robots, IoT, these AI and ICT new technologies can be utilized to reduce carbon emissions, increase energy efficiency, and better develop renewable energies. To be more specific, I will not cover the details, but based on AI and big data-based green technology, we can establish a very efficient energy management system, and through that system, we can reduce the energy consumption and predict and control carbon emissions. We also have VR, AR, digital twin technology. With that technology, we can predict the future. And we also have blockchain technology, which can be used for carbon credit trading to increase transparency and reliability. And the second solution I believe we can adopt is ethical solution. In this era of post-human, today what is emphasized is, as it was mentioned before, SDG, announced by the UN, or ESG, which is welcomed by many companies, or decentralization in blockchain technology, or fairness, transparency, emphasized by the MZ generation. And I believe all these terms are related to ethics. After all, since humans make and consume everything on Earth, and humans must take responsibility. Therefore, we must move away from the selfishness that humans are the masters of the earth and have an ethical consciousness that they must coexist with the Mother Nature as part of the ecosystem. But in some cases, technology and ethics can affect each other. If we focus too much on technology, then ethics will not be covered and valued, and vice versa. That means we need to strike the balance between the two. Humans and technologies need to live in harmony. By then, we can overcome climate crises and environmental issues. It is human beings who need to solve the problem caused by themselves. We need to take our responsibility. ESG, sustainability, these are related to ethics. And those with good morality, the company, individuals, and nations with good morality would become very successful. And I believe Korea is one of the countries who emphasize the importance of morality. BTS, a Squid Game, or Dr. Bong Joon-ho are very popular globally, and that I believe is because of our high morality. And I believe it is also morality that can provide us with some answer to those environmental crises and problems as well. I also hope that we can take this opportunity to spread this good influence toward the rest of the world. Thank you.
전창대 이사.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Chan. How can we effectively introduce AI technology? I do not think we can reach a consensus overnight. We need to have more discussions in the future, but he says that technology and ethics should work in harmony, and I found it very difficult to do business because the ethical standards are very high in Jeju too. And the issues of ethics should function as important foundation. As for the advanced countries, we have 700 vehicles per 1,000 people, but the same number is 50 per 1,000 in Africa. But in the future, I believe that Africa will have 500 vehicles distributed per 1,000, which means that we need to secure more resources of energy. And our efforts to reduce CO2, do you think that we can achieve our goal? Because there will be more people who want to have vehicles and who will consume more powers. So in that regards, I believe the advanced countries need to take more responsibilities because they have enjoyed the benefit out of using all the resources up to now. Let's move on to the next discussant, Yoon Sang-go from the Jeju self-governing province. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your good ideas and good knowledge and thought. So as for me, let me tell you what we have experienced up to now and what our future plan is. What you are talking about lead me to think of the gap between the reality and idea. So that will be another topic that I may cover if time allows. As for Jeju, about 10 years ago, carbon-free island plan was drawn up 10 years ago. So this year marks our 10th anniversary. The chairperson was the main leader for the policy, for the project. And over the 10 years, I believe that we have achieved a certain outcome. And let me talk about the statistics of last year. In terms of the power generation, about 20% are from the renewable energy, 18 point something to be exact. And within the Jeju province, on the road, 7 out of 100 vehicles are electric vehicles. The average for the Korea is 1.4. So I believe that we are 7 times higher in terms of the number of electric vehicles, which means that Jeju is a pioneer when it comes to carbon neutrality. And during the process, we have encountered unprecedented problems too, because we are not ready to accommodate all the renewable energies. When the wind is very strong, the wind turbine is not working. As I said, power generation capacity out of renewable is 40%. But what is actually generated from the renewable resources is only 18.8%. So technology-wise, we know that we need to achieve a carbon neutrality, but we have stumbling blocks that prevent us from achieving it sooner than later. That's the reality that we are in. And over the past 10 years, we have made a lot of improvement. And what further improvement shall we need to make? Once we resolve all the issues, as an advanced country, we are at the bottom in terms of the proportion of renewable energy. we have only 8.some% of renewable energy. However, Jeju is far ahead of the Korean average, and I believe that the rest of the Korea will follow suit of Jeju. And RE 100, once we achieve the renewable energy 100, I think we will set the model for others to follow. Many companies approach us, and talk about the possible project or businesses and battery businesses and others. There are many different ideas. However, they do not have any economic value when we apply it in the current systems in place. This means that we need to upgrade the system. And doing so, we need to upgrade the economic, or we need to work on the economic factors. As one of the speakers said, environmental issues are the economic issues. And if we try to achieve RE 100, we will achieve the carbon neutrality and achieve the other goals at the same time. And Jeju is at the forefront of achieving it. We have the ecosystem that can support it to some extent. And last year, Ian De Cruz, Secretary General, I saw you last year, and P4G, the Energy Transition Best Partnership Award, is what we received. And that's not the end. Rather, it's a starting point for us to making further efforts. 2030 goal still remains the same. It's valid. Now let me introduce the future directions that we are headed for. Demand-wise, we need to manage demand too. Starting from last year, Plus DR was implemented as a pilot project, which is not easy. Even though we provide incentive, it was difficult to overcome the stumbling block. So we try to encourage using a charging stations for electric vehicle in certain time band. But if we do make further effort, we can manage demand side too. And from utilities perspective, utilities-wise, we try to build a certain level of power generation facilities. What is required is to improve the laws and regulations. There is a certain bill submitted to the National Congress, but that is not passed yet. So rather than waiting for it to pass, we may try to provide some sandbox so that companies with new ideas can experiment and find a better way, a new way, and they can be some source of pride for the Koreans as a whole. And as for AI, how can it utilize to generate the output of power? AI may be used to be utilized to control or adjust the control of the power input and output. So there's some possibility for us to develop some AI model for the energy. Thank you for sharing your idea too in that regards. Thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, Dr. Hong, he has to take flight He has some conference in Seoul, so I will hand over microphone to him so that he can finish his comment and leave the session.
허들이 많다.
Thank you very much. I agree that there are a lot of hurdles. In Korea, in order to expand renewables, we need to overcome 3 limitations. First, the Korea corporation should separate their process from production to sales. They are doing everything, and they should focus on transmission and distribution. Secondly, the sales market should be open. This is not feasible. The traditional way is not feasible for the distribution era. And third, the power price is our very significant issue now. We need a regulatory body that is not affected by the political power. With this 3 hurdles being overcome, we can have a better future. Even with the 14% of power being produced from renewable energy in Jeju Island, the island still face a lot of issues, including curtail, which is very unfortunate. That is why I believe the government should take it very seriously to solve the problem. Without doing those efforts and just say that they will increase renewable energy, that will not be achieved. Thank you.
주셔서 감사드리고요.
Thank you. You may go now.
고윤성 과장님 귀한 발표 감사드리고요.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Go. We have many officials in the government, Jeju government, to work on the project. Our environmental project was not global in the past. It was local. Wind turbine, there was a strong resistance from the environmentalists. We faced the same challenge when we wanted to introduce electric vehicles as well. However, overcoming all the hurdles and resistance, we kind of introduced the electronic vehicles in large quantities. Can you just give your big hand to our government officials, like Mr. Go, who has done their best? Now, I think that we are headed for carbon neutrality. All the countries around the world declare that they will achieve the goal of carbon neutrality, which means that we have to share what we have learned. Our governor of Jeju, he is willing to share our knowledge and insight, and he will provide all the support for that. Now, I'd like to open the floor and get some questions from the floor. Maybe since we do not have enough time, I will get one question from the floor. Is there any question? Thank you for not asking any question because we are falling behind the schedule. I study science and engineering, so my position might be different from those ones who study social economics or social studies. I thought that Earth will kind of go broken in the future. As for the CO2 reduction, we cannot do it alone. Jeju cannot do it alone. International cooperation is required. That's essential. However, the political situations worry me. With the Biden administration taking office, CO2 will be reduced with the strong regulations introduced in the USA. However, it's not taking place yet. I believe the government officials and politicians need to do more so that we can better respond to the climate changes. They need to set the model so that we can minimize the damage that we are doing to the globe and try to conserve as much as possible for the sake of our descendants. Is there anybody who wants to deliver the final speech or final remark before we wrap up? If not, you're hesitant because we are behind schedule. Okay, got it. So I think that we have to finish the session. Today we have had a session on the achieving net zero using green technology, and the forum was on the green tech utilization and the future of a sustainable renewable energy industry. I'd like to thank all the speakers and audiences who joined us on and offline. With this, I'd like to wrap up the session. Thank you.